Deanna Kunovac here for Inside Carolina TV. I am in Charlottesville, Virginia, joined by Scout.com's national recruiting basketball analysts Evan Daniels and Rob Harrington. We are at NBPA Top 100 camp here watching all the top guys in the country. We're going to break down a few of the UNC guys, starting with the 2015 class, and a guy that Carolina has been interested in for quite some time now, has had an offer on the table for quite some time now, Brandon Ingram. Rob, what have you seen from him? I'll start with you so far at this camp.
Honestly, this hasn't been a great week for him. I've seen him play much better. Fortunately, I've seen him play a lot. Of course, he's local to us, being in the state of North Carolina. He is a very good talent. I think in the setting and the more up and down, fast-paced style, where the best guys sometimes are able to create for themselves, I think Brandon is the kind of guy who does better when he can be a little bit more in a more of a half-court team setting. As odd as that sounds for a Carolina recruit, I think he can play up tempo, but here he's just looked a little bit out of sorts.
Evan, would you agree? What have you seen from Brandon Ingram?
I certainly agree with what Rob said. I think some of it has to do with the physical play. He's obviously has a very slight frame, and he continues to grow and hasn't really added much weight. So I think that might be a cause for concern going forward. But Rob and I did see him in Adina's event in Orlando a couple weeks ago, and I was really impressed with his skill and his shooting ability there. Probably chalk it up to a couple bad sessions, and there's still a lot of camp left, so we'll see how he performs the rest of the way.
Where have you seen him improve the most over the past few months, in the past year?
I think it's probably his confidence. I was really impressed at the Adidas Orlando event, just with his aggressive nature and his confidence on the offensive end. I thought that had improved. Now, obviously, here it's regressed a little, so I'm interested to see going forward. And like I said, there's still a couple more sessions left, but he is a versatile offensive talent. He's skilled. He can make jump shots. There's a lot to like about him.
We're going to stick with the 2015 class, continue with a guy, PJ Dozier, who UNC has been very interested for quite some time now as well. What have you seen from him so far this camp?
Dozier has had a very solid camp, and I know solid can be a very generic descriptor, but that's what he's been. He hasn't made a ton of really flashy highlight plays, but he hasn't made many bad plays, and in that sense he's been a standout. I think if we were keeping very sharp stats, he would probably show up on the steals line, somewhat on the assist line, some blocks. He makes a lot of heady plays. He's not a shooter, and I know that will probably upset people to hear who are desperately wanting a shooter, but he does a lot of other things well. I think he projects as a very good fifth starter for a national title caliber team. If that's where he ends up and that's the role he plays, I think he'd be a great fifth starter. And maybe that doesn't excite people so much, but it's a really important four-year piece to have.
Evan, if he were to choose Carolina, how would you see him fitting into the system there? Because he talks about wanting to be a point guard. That's all he wants to play. Yeah,
he definitely wants to play on the ball, and I don't know if that's what's going to happen in college. I'm not sold on that yet. He is very skilled. He's a good ball handler. I guess the concern is he's not very quick. He's more of a possession-type point guard. He's not a guy that's going to race by guys and really get by guys, but he is skilled and he can really pass. So he's actually a really tough evaluation because it's hard to slot him in a certain position. You could throw him on the wing, but as Rob said, he's not a great shooter. You could put the ball in his hands because he's a good passer, but he's also a good passer from the ring too. So he's an interesting player.
Rob, do you think that he would play point guard in college?
Not based on the roster that they have. For one thing, I don't like him defensively as a point guard. I think he'd be a lot better on the wing. And when they already have guys like Nate Britt and Joel Berry going forward, even in the post-Marcus Page era, they already have 2 point guards. I don't think that's something they've sought out in this class. I think Dozier originally was maybe more of a combo guard when he was 6'3", 6'4". Now he's 6'6". To me, he's a wing forward. And I think that's realistically he'll be on the wing somewhere.
Evan, the final guy in the 2015 class that UNC is looking at, Kenny Williams. I haven't seen him much. What have you seen from him so far?
He's a high-level shooter. He's a guy that can really make shots from long range, and he can do it consistently, and he can do it well beyond the three-point stripe. So I thought he was one of the best shooters I saw in EYBL at the 2 events I went to. So I think it's pretty obvious that Carolina is looking for and needs a shooter in the 2015 class, and Kenny Williams can certainly do that.
Rob, would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. He's the shooter that everyone wants. That's the one thing that he has specialized in. What has impressed me here, and I think Evan touched on this too, is that he's actually put the ball on the floor some. We've talked about that as a unit. That it's been a pleasant surprise for him because his reputation, he has been boxed in as a designated shooter type, and he can do that, but I think he's more multifaceted than he's shown on the travel circuit sometimes.
Let's move on to the 2016 guys, and a guy that I've been impressed with that I think has been one of the better ones at this camp, Idris Adebayo, the big man. What have you seen from him, and are you as impressed with him?
Absolutely. This event is notorious for eating up underclassmen. And Bam Bam Adebayo hasn't been eaten up. He's definitely been the hungry one. He's been out playing a lot of these older guys. It helps that he's so physically advanced for his age, but he's also just a rugged, confident player, and I think Carolina needs a dose of that. He is not the skilled interior scorer, maybe, that they've hunted the past few years, but he has some promise there. But more than anything, he'll rebound, he'll play defense. He loves to run the floor, and he has a high revving engine that I like, and I'm sure that Roy Williams likes too.
Evan, how would you see good old Bam Bam fitting in at UNC?
Well, I think you certainly could see him fitting in well inside as an energy guy, an enforcer. I think Rob hit the nail on the head with just about everything he said. He's not a guy that you're going to throw the ball into and say, go get me a bucket. He's going to go get that bucket off a putback or a rebound or just make a play. And I think his energy, his athleticism, his physicality, he likes to fight in the paint, and I think he's going to be a really good rebounder. So I think that's the type of player he is, and I think every team needs a guy like that. Every team needs an energy guy, a physical player.
Well, speaking of energy, Seventh Woods, athletic as can be, what have you seen from him?
He's elite athletically. I mean, from an athleticism standpoint, he's as good as it gets. And, I think the biggest thing with him is what position is he? And that's been a big topic among all the Scout.com basketball recruiting guys. Do we put him at the 1? Do we put him at the 2? And it's been a heated discussion. I think at this point he's obviously a true combo guard, and I actually am starting to prefer him off the ball. I think he's probably better as a shooting guard. I think if he focused on that, he could be one of the best shooting guards in the 2016 class.
Rob Harrington, are you putting Seventh Woods at the 1 or at the 2?
I'm still undecided. I think offensively he's more of a natural 2. I think that's pretty clear. Defensively, however, he's a true point guard. I think he's one of the best point guard defenders in the class. And if you buy into the idea that you should categorize a player position by his defensive position, then that's where 7th should be. However, he still has a long way to go offensively as a distributor and also a scorer when he's not in transition. When he's in half-court game, I think he would be more comfortable not having to run the offense, and that's just fine. Put it this way, he's more of a point guard than Dexter Strickland, and yet Dexter Strickland could be effective off the ball. So I think that's how he would fit in there. He could play on the ball, he could play off it. He's good enough. He's too good not to play.
Speaking of point guards, the last guy in the 2016 class and the last guy we're going to discuss, Dennis Smith, who I've seen distribute the ball very well. What have you seen from him skill-wise?
This has been a continuation of his entire winter and spring, is that he's clearly established himself as the first or second best point guard in that class. He hasn't always been dynamite here, but he shows you flashes of dominance. And I think he has the point guard skills, but he's also a better scorer. But his scoring game is not just in transition, it's also half court. And I think that's why no one questions that he's a point guard. He's not as gifted athletically as Seventh Woods, but it's not that much of a gap.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And I think he's a tremendous athlete. Comparing somebody to Seventh Woods athletically is almost not fair. The thing I like about Dennis is his initial burst and his speed. It's ridiculous. And his first step is very quick, and he doesn't have any trouble getting by guys. He's a very crafty ball handler. And like Rob said, he's a pretty good overall scorer. His jump shot can be a little spotty and streaky at times, but he can really get into the paint when he wants to, and he can finish well above the rim. And, his evening game on the first day just kind of blew me away. He made plays for teammates, he made plays for himself, he defended the ball. I agree with Rob. I think he's certainly in the conversation for the top point guard in the 2016 class, and we're going to be updating rankings in the next 1 or 2 weeks, and I think you're going to see a big rise out of him.
All right, well, final question for you guys. Out of all the 6 players that we've discussed in the 2015 and 2016 class, who do you see being the best fit at Carolina? I'll start with you, Evan.
That's an interesting question. I think they're all...
Do we need to go to Rob first? No.
Well, I think they're all good fits. I think what Carolina needs most is probably shooting. So a guy like Kenny Williams fits into that role. I think it's pretty clear they need a shooter. They're targeting shooters, and he's a guy that can make shots.
Rob?
I think if you started with a roster blank slate, it would be Smith or Woods, because they've had their best teams when they've had a dominant point guard. In terms of the current personnel, I agree with Evan that it's Williams, because they really need a shooter. Maybe what they need more than that is interior scorer, but none of the guys on that list really qualifies as that. So add another couple players and we might have a different conversation. But basically we agree on Williams. And then I think, as always, they need a dominant point guard.
You guys are boring. You agree with each other too much. I was expecting a smackdown. From Charlottesville, Virginia, alongside Rob Harrington and Evan Daniels. Thanks, everyone.